Hello and welcome to a new video on this channel, a character creation guide for Anima Beyond Fantasy. Little history of what Anima Beyond Fantasy is. It is a Spanish-based RPG published by, I believe, Fantasy Flight. I believe Fantasy Flight published this. It's nowhere on the front cover. In 2000 something, I don't remember when exactly, but it's a relatively popular game, heavily inspired by like anime and things of that ilk, as well as high fantasy. Final Fantasy, ironically, is being a big inspiration for this game. We will be going over character creation in this, and just how to make a basic character. We won't be specializing anything. This will be just how to select, how to get skills, how to set up your characteristics, how the sheet for Roll20 works, as I'll show you here. So that will be working here. As you can see, we have a character sheet ready to go. He will be Virgil. He will be, basic fighter character, not to confuse you. We will, in later videos, be going into more detail on specific types of classes. So, your magic users, which come in two varieties, summoner, spellcaster, your psychics, and your key users. We'll go into more detail of how to make each one of them specifically, but for this video, it will just be a basic, down and dirty character creation guide. So with that, let us begin. So, Anima starts where all RPGs, at least good ones anyway, start. Characteristics. In Anima, they are strength, dexterity, agility, constitution, intelligence, power, willpower, and perception. These are relatively important. Now, there's a few ways you can generate them. We're just going to use the method that I always use when I'm playing the game, which is 2d10, 2 sets, take the higher number. Now, as you can see here, there's a characteristic modifiers. Get used to seeing tables, folks. Anima loves them a lot. There are characteristic modifiers. 5, human average, basically, is a +0. And then it goes up to +45 for your 20 and a -30 for your 1s. Pretty basic. So what we're going to do is we're just going to roll this set once. Because this isn't a proper character. It's just to show you guys. So for Roll20, and in case you didn't know, for any really new people, you type in to the chat /roll 2d10 DL1. Now what this basically tells the chat to do is roll 2d10s and then drop the lowest one, which is how we do this. So we do that a number of times for each of the stats, as you can see here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times is how many times you do this. And you would obviously note these stats down somewhere. So let's do this 7 more times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's all of them. Now, I guess this goes to show my luck where I get the most lopsided thing ever. So, now, a 2 is kind of an unplayable stat in Anima. 4 is like you have some form of deficiency in it, like you're a bit slow-witted, you have slow reflexes. 3 is you are disabled in something, 2 is you are horrifically so, and 1 is subhuman. So having 2 2s is quite bad, which brings up a house rule I personally use. If you get lower than a 3, you re-roll it. So we would roll 2 more times till we get something that isn't 3. So 6 and 9. There you go. I guess, folks, this character is going to be the Chad of Chads because he has ridiculous stats. So from here, we would assign these numbers. We would assign all of these numbers to the corresponding stats. Now, I want to make a fighter, a warrior, not just someone who's a mercenary, but we're going for a strong, hardy fighter. So strength. Probably quite important. So I believe we got a 10 somewhere. So let's put that in strength. So the way this works is when you hover over any of the stats, you'll see a little red icon. When you hover over a lot of things in the sheet, you'll see a red icon. You click on that, and in the base section, you put in whatever that stat is now. So strength 10. Now, you haven't actually finished yet. There's a little box down here called mod. It's a, big old +0. It's a click down menu. And as you can see, it has the same numbers as that table we saw in the book. This one. So find the corresponding bonus or modifier for the stat you put in. So for our 10, it'll be a +15. And put it in here. As you can see, that then does the math on a lot of these for you. If there's any problem I have with Anima, it really wants you to do a lot of math. So that's our 10 dealt with. So let's move on to our 9s. So we have 2 9s. So as a fighter, our dexterity is probably quite important. So again, you put your 9 in there, look for the corresponding bonus on the table. So an 8 to a 9 is +10. And then you close it again. Constitution, also relatively important. So always remember, you hover over it, you click the little red icon, put the base number up to whatever the amount is, and then put in your little mod. Alright, next up is our 2 8s. I think agility is also relatively important for a fighter. Now, you may be asking, what's the difference between agility and dexterity? Did you know they are relatively similar things? Well, dexterity is hand-eye coordination and affects your attack and your block. Yes, Anima has... We'll get to these, but it affects these two for later on. It also affects different skills. Agility affects your dodge, how good you are at dodging, as well as your movement speed. So, with a +8, we have a +10. With 8, we have a +10 to agility-based things. Now, next up, we have our 7 and our 6. Yes. Well, I think I may have not rolled enough things, but who cares? So next up, we have our int. I don't think that's going to be a 7. He's not a very smart man. Maybe not dumb, but not smart. Perception, I think that's relatively important as a warrior, so we'll put that to a 7 as well. So you would, I think you get the drift now. So we'll move on from here. Put different things in different areas. The whole thing. I think I have a 6, so +5, and we'll leave willpower at 5. He's not particularly willful, not particularly smart. So now that we've done that, we would move on to determining secondary characteristics. These don't mean anything. Essentially, this is a way to determine your height and a way to determine your appearance. It doesn't matter. Now, next up, we would determine our race. For there are supernatural races in Anima. They are the Giants, the Sylvan, the Dexarist, the Ebudon, the Dinja, and 3 others I don't remember the name of because they're in the advanced book. Now, we're going to ignore this because this is a basic character and these have a myriad of things to themselves, and frankly, when it comes down to it, your GM will probably say no to you taking these. Now, next is we determine our class, or primary and secondary abilities. These are our, ability to dodge, use ki, use magic, all that sort of stuff. We can ignore this for now. I'll go into more detail, but for now, all we need to know about is attack ability, block ability, dodge ability, weapon modules, and wear armor. Pretty self-explanatory things. Where attack ability is your ability to attack, block is your ability to block, dodge is your ability to dodge. Sorry about that, folks. Weapon modules are your ability... Sorry about that, folks. Won't be editing this out. Weapon modules are your ability to use weapons, wear armor. It's how you fly. No, it's how you wear your armor. We'll ignore these for now. these will be in the specific sections on psionics and magic. Now, after reading that, which is mostly handled by your Shi, it's basically a section about, secondary abilities, all that sort of stuff. Secondary abilities are your skills in this game. You would pick your archetype. Now, there are a lot of archetypes to this game. And really, you just should pick one whichever suits your preference. Now, we're going to ignore the domain, the psychic, and the mystic archetypes, as well as the ones that are both. Because you can be, a mentalist warrior, or a warlock, which is essentially a mage warrior. Now, for this character, I think we will be going for a warrior. Now, classic warrior archetype. So we are a human. Our class is warrior. Male, and these don't matter because they're determined by the table, but yeah. So once you've determined that part, you move on to picking to what's known as your development points. Now, development points are essentially how you level up in this game. You start with 600, and you gain a number equal to 100 every level up. Sorry. You gain 100 every level up. Now, this in turn just basically comes into the leveling up system of this game. You get more hit points and development points to spend on your secondary abilities and your primary abilities, whatever they are. So, we will go to the character classes. Yes, this book is quite badly laid out. Like, it goes through all of character creation and then goes to races, then classes. Oh, there they are. Jayan, Diajam, I can't pronounce that. Ebudan, Damaha, and Duxaris. I probably accidentally mentioned one from a different book. 31. So, we're going for, the basic of basic archetypes. We'll go for a warrior. Now, I know, this looks like, whoa, a lot of information at once. Now, it's not bad, though. I can explain it all. So, the archetype, that is just what type of branch of things does this fall under? Is it a fighter? Is it a sneaky class? Is it a mage? Life point multiple is how many development points it takes to increase your life points by an X amount. It's usually your modifier to your constitution on top of whatever you have. So it's 15 per, meaning warriors are, a little bit easier. It's a little bit easier for them to get more hit points. Easier for them to take a hit. Life points per level is how many hit points you would get per level when you are this class. You can basically switch class at any time in this game. Initiative per level is how much initiative you get, how much initiative bonus you get per level. Initiative is a D100 plus a stat plus your initiative bonus from your class plus some other things. We'll get to that. Martial knowledge is for key user characters primarily. It's your martial knowledge, your martial prowess. You then have this, and this block more or less explains these two, the other blocks. Your primary abilities have limitations to them. For instance, as a warrior, we can only ever put 60% of our total development points into our combat ability. If we want to do things for supernatural or psionics, the limit's 50%. This is to represent that as a warrior, you're probably going to be more of a melee fighter. We'll get to this once we start spending these development points. Secondary abilities, though, have no such limit. You could, if you wanted, you could put nothing into your primary abilities and just have secondary abilities. The +1 then athletics 2 is saying for every +1 you get, it costs 2 development points. So if you wanted to +10 to like any of your athletic skills, it'd cost you 20 development points. +50 would cost you 100, so on and so forth. As you can see, this can get pretty confusing if you don't know what you're doing. Cost reduction is essentially this specific skill costs a little bit less for you. So for instance, for warriors, feat of strength is 1-to-1. I put 100 development points in it, I get 100 points to feat of strength. Again, a warrior, strong, powerful, pretty cool. Innate bonuses are bonuses your character just gets every time they level up. And these don't go away when you change class. All of these things, they stay. So your primary abilities you get +5 to attack and block per level, but only to a maximum of +50. So essentially, there's a limit to how much these can get, so you can't stack infinite bullshit. And a +5 to wear armor per level. So you're better at attacking, blocking, and wearing armor. You're a tank. And you also get a +5 to your feat of strength per level. Again, you're stronger. So keeping this little table in mind, I'm going to put it on my other screen because I have 2 monitors, so I'll keep it up and I'll bring it back every now and again. We'll spend our development points. Now, I think Virgil is a very hardy warrior, so I think he's going to spend a lot of his development, like all 60% he can, on his primary combat abilities. So ignoring key for now, because we're not doing a key user. At any one time, you can only spend 50% of your total development points on attack and block, or what are known as your attacking skills or combat skills. This is regardless of your combat ability limit. So obviously we have 600, meaning our maximum amount we can spend is 360. But because you can only spend 50% maximum on attack, block, and dodge in any combination of the 3, that means that we can actually only spend 300 on these. Now, because I think this character is, relatively strong and good at combat, I'll spend the full 300, leaving me with 60 for anything else in the combat ability section. Now, as you saw just there, similar to the stats, if you hover over them, there's a little gear icon. Click that down and you can open up this. Now, the base is your development point spending. So this will be, so as you saw on here, attack is 2 to 1, and so is block. So for every 2 points I spend, I get 1 point of block and attack. So I'm going to spend 150 on each, which is 300. So half of 150 is 75. So the base becomes 75. My class also gives me a +5 per level, and I am level 1. Therefore, I put a +5 in the class section, giving me a block and attack of 90. There you go. That's how that works. Next up is the armor skill, which is under the armory tab. Weirdly laid out sheet. Now, again, +5 from my class, and I'm going to spend the remaining 60 points I have in here, which would give me a 30, which means I have a wear armor of 50. To give you an idea, plate mail requires around 60 wear armor. So, makes you, I'm pretty decent at wearing armor. I'm not going to, fall over and break my neck in anything. But yeah, so after that, we would move on to our skills. Or the remainder of our points to spend wherever we want. So obviously 600 minus 360 equals 240. So we have 240 to kind of spread around wherever we want. Now, I always recommend that you just spend these 240 on your skills. It's just the smarter option. Like, you're going to need skills. So let's figure out what this character's good at. Well, he'd probably be good at athleticism. So let's, put in, let's say, let's have a base of 20, which means we'd spend 40 points on it, leaving us with 200. He's probably pretty good at climbing, so let's put a 10 in there. And he's probably, I'm thinking a knight type character, so he probably knows how to ride a horse. I think that's fair. So that's 20, 40, another 40 spent. So that's 160 left. I don't think he's very good at any of the social skills. I think he definitely has a bit of notice though. So, put another base 10 in there. And minus another 20, leaving us 140. And so on and so forth. So I'll just finish putting this out. So, Now, as I said before, Feat of Strength for us is a bonus skill, so we get it 1-to-1, and we get a nice +5. Ignore the gear icon, we'll get to that at the very end, so... There you go. So he knows how to... So I think the dancing kind of works there. So that's us spent all of our development points, which means we are now done with that section of character creation. Now, at the very end, I will give a recommendation because I don't agree with the way the book tells you to do it, but I'll leave that recommendation till the end till you guys know what you're doing. So, yep, next up after this, we move on to advantages and disadvantages. Now, for this character, I'm only going to take some advantages, no disadvantages. And we're not going to be using any of these specialized ones. So, advantages and disadvantages are unique things about your character in some way. As you can see, they're here. They're things like extra points to characteristics, acute senses, having a mystical artifact, things like that. Think of them similarly to merits and flaws from the World of Darkness, if you're familiar with that. If you're not, we're about to go into it. Now, Now, you start with 3 points to buy advantages with. Just 3 points. And they all cost at different amounts. I think for this character, we are going to take the good luck trait. So we're going to take the good luck trait, which means whenever you get an advantage, you just click this little add button, you click on it, you type in its name, and boom. And then you put in how much it cost. Now, obviously, you're probably going to say like, oh, hey, I want to type in what it does. Well, if you just type in here, and this will let you click on the little gear icon when you hover over it, this will let you put it in, and it'll help your GM and you keep track of what your traits do. And I think we will also put in regeneration. Now, regeneration is interesting in this system. So, in Anima, the healing system works essentially like a healing system. It's your body healing. And at certain points, you know, depending on how high your constitution is, depending on specific traits you may buy, or magic items, or in character reasons of maybe your party ran into something and it changed you, your regeneration can go to what are known as supernatural levels. And this can get to the point where you're Wolverine levels of regeneration, like it's ridiculous. Every character in the game has what's known as a regeneration stat. It's determined by your constitution. I believe it's 1 for everything except for 10, where it's 2. This advantage adds at the basic level +2. If you get a second level, it increases it by +4, and that basically means that like wounds that most people would probably like get killed from, you can heal from. And maybe if you're lucky and you really fudge the dice a bit, you can reattach an arm if you put it back on after it gets severed. But that's getting a bit to the ridiculous levels. But yeah, so that's how advantages work. Now, as you can see, there are only 4 slots for disadvantages. That is because you can only have 3 disadvantages at any one time. Plus a 4th if you choose to play one of the Nephilim races, because they get their own disadvantage. Well, all of them get a specific one, and then some of them have their own unique ones. But you can only ever take 3 disadvantages, regardless of price though. So if you want to take 3 that all give you a +3 to your amount of advantage points you want to spend, go ahead, get a +9. But remember, as well as, you know, like a +3 is really good, a -3 is really bad. So, you know, like, yeah, you should even out these. Now, when we get to the magic users and the psychics, we'll be going a bit more into detail about advantages and disadvantages. Mostly disadvantages, because you kind of need to take them there if you want to actually have any advantages outside of specific ones. So yeah, after that, you would move on to equipment. Now, Anima is a bit iffy with equipment. It's a bit iffy with equipment. It kind of doesn't really give you any like idea of how much money you should have. So yeah, I would say at that point it's up to your GM how much you can have. But just to let you know where things go, or at least what I personally do when I need to use equipment, I make a misc tab, a weapons tab, an armor tab, and then a magic items tab. Essentially, just like random crap, armor / clothing, weapons, and magic items. Yes. So, oh, sorry. There's one more thing we need to cover. Technically, two more. Sorry, I forgot about them because they're both hidden in the book in sections that aren't in character creation. This book is terribly laid out. This is why I'm making this video. Proficiencies. So, in Anima, when you develop your attack skill, you develop it with a specific type of weapon. So let's say our character uses a saber. Classic saber. They're like a pirate. Now, that's what you start with. But this means any weapon you use outside of a saber is going to have negatives because you're not trained with it. So as a warrior, let's say we had some development points left over. We didn't spend them all on skills. And I do recommend this if you're playing a warrior style character. Let's say we want to buy a different proficiency. Now, I don't recommend buying what are known as similar, mixed class, different types, or whole class. Because they're kind of crap. Essentially what this means is, the weapon you can now use is similar to a saber, so it's a one-handed sword or a finesse weapon, something like that. Mixed class is it shares one aspect with your weapon. Different type is it's a different weapon entirely, and a whole class is I can use all two-handed swords. I can use all warhammers. Archetypes are like sets of weapons that you can use because that archetype would use it. So knight, ninja, that sort of thing. As you can see, combat modules don't show up till page 56. So yeah, each one costs a different amount. So similar weapon is 10 DP, mixed class is 15, different type / unarmed is 20, and a whole class is 50. Essentially, projectiles, throwing, improvised. You can also get archetypes. So we picked the knight archetype because he's a knight character. So he is now able to use longsword, cavalry lance, a mace, a bastard sword, and a shield. So, that's those. I recommend if you are playing a primarily warrior type character who uses weapons, picking up at least, I'd say don't bother with any of these. Just pick up one of the archetypes because they're pretty nice. The style modules are also quite nice, but they're not required. They're essentially just like, hey, I can use a special ability. It's nice. After that, there's only one thing we need to do left, and that is apply what's known as our natural bonus. Now, every level up, you get 5 + 10s to put wherever you want, and what's known as you can add your natural bonus onto a physical skill and a mental skill. Your natural bonus is just the bonus you get from your statistics. So if I were to add my natural bonus onto my strength again, it would be an extra 15 points on top. So now the thing about your natural bonus is your natural bonus can never exceed +50. And this isn't just like, oh, like, oh, you can just never put more than 5 plus 10s into one stat. No, it's in combination with the natural bonus again. So the way this works is, you pick 5 stat skills to put a plus 10 into. Now, these skills, you have to have points in them. You can't just put a plus 10 into a skill you have no points in. So for our character, we'll put a plus 10 into athleticism. We'll put a plus 10 into climb. We'll put a plus 10 into ride, which is 1, 2, 3 of our points already. We'll put another plus 10 into our notice, so that's 4. And we'll put another plus 10 into our feat of strength. Now, as you can see, when you hover over skill, you just hit the gear icon. It will open up this little thing. The N.A is where you put your plus 10s. And the hashtag nat is where you would put your natural statistic bonus. So I'll put that in my feat of strength, and I'll put my mental one into my willpower stat. Green is physical, blue is mental. Now, remember when I said that your natural bonus can never exceed plus 50? That includes in combination with your hashtag nat and your NA. I'm just going to call them that for now because there is no difference between these two. So right now, that is a plus 25, meaning I've only got 25 more points before I'm not allowed to put any more points in. So, basic thing. So I could put in one more of these and another plus 10 here, and then I wouldn't be allowed to put any more into that stat. This is essentially just to give your skills that little boost so they're not super bad. And that is basically character creation. The only things left would be to determine secondary abilities. Stuff like your movement speed, your hit points, how much money you start with, what armor you're starting with, when you're starting with any equipment pre-made, that sort of thing. If anyone has any questions, just ask them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and give me feedback. Let me know how I did, what you guys think of this video, and if you would like to see more and would like to see me going through the character creation for the individual subsets like magic, psionics, and ki. And also if you want me to show you how to use this sheet a bit better in any homebrew rules. But yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.